Hello and welcome to my art space. I started doing art right on my dining table, and there was the space where you would see all my flowers and art bloom on the dining table. Now, the reason why I wanted to bring this video up to you today was to share with you the evolution of my journey in terms of my space. At the same time, I also hope that this video inspires you to see that you don't need a dedicated studio space for you to create. So many of us are limited by thinking that we need a dedicated area, and on the other hand, what I have operated from is literally from a tray. And I'm going to be showing you how this tray has been moving from the dining table to the bedroom and now to the space that you actually get to see right here. I also want to share with you that the limiting belief that so many of us have with regard to space can really hinder our ability to create and connect with art. So many of us want to create, want to make art, but at the same time, we feel like we don't have a studio, we don't have a space. And I want you to know that creating art can be just from a little corner in your home, wherever that you deem fit, where you can have a surface to actually have pencil and paper and start creating. That it does not have to be complicated where you need a shelf and so on and so forth. Now, while you are coming on this journey with me, and if you're new to my channel, my name is Jillian. I am an artist that is based in Singapore. I love sharing my passion as well as tips, tutorials, and all things watercolor with you on this channel. Now, the thing is, before I had kids, I used to have a spare room where I could create my art. Now that room has now been taken over and it's now my kids' room, so I don't have that luxury of that space anymore. And now I've got all three of my kids bunked into the same room, which is where I've got this spare room. Now before that, this is where I did not create because I was limited by the fact that I did not have a space. I told myself that, oh, I would have to take out a lot of my art supplies, and some of these art supplies take up space. I was limited by the fact that I didn't want my kids to touch my art things, and therefore I felt like I shouldn't have them left out in the open. I didn't even want to think about considering using my dining table as a space because I was afraid as well that they were just going to be touching and my art was going to be ruined, and all of these thoughts were really about me. I realized that as I continued and I started to create on the dining table, that my kids were actually able to connect with me in different forms. We also managed to learn how to build boundaries around mommy's things versus when to touch, how to look, and asking for permission. There were so many skills that I managed to develop in my kids as well, which I felt was such a bonus, them seeing me create, them seeing me enjoying, and also making time to play. Now, these are such important values for me that I want to have for my children to see, and I'm glad that because I had no space, I created that space on the dining table, and all of these basically happy effects came about as well. I want to take you on this journey and show you that process does not necessarily mean just techniques in painting, but rather so many things that can also help and aid us or even hinder us in our journey that will be discussed in this channel. Now, without further ado, let's dive in as I bring you on this journey to see the evolution of my space, and I can't wait for this to be part of your journey as you think about making space for your own art as well. I started creating on the dining table where I used a huge tray to contain all of my watercolor supplies, and then I wanted to take a look at the different processes in terms of how my painting came to life, and this is where I started to use this particular phone holder, and this helped me to capture my process. I did time-lapse videos just to see how I actually created my own paintings, and it was always very interesting to see. But at the end of the day, this particular phone holder cast a shadow over my work when I started to paint at night. The nice thing about operating from a tray is that I could move it around and I would move it over to that ledge by the window when it was dinner time. So this was how I mobilized and moved around with my supplies all in one tray. If you're interested to find out how this tray came about, now I found that there was a lady who was using this tray for her kids' sensory play and Play-Doh and puzzles, Legos and all of that, and I thought it was so genius. I got it for my kids, and in the end I started using it, and that's where you see I have got my supplies all over on it. So as you know, I am a one-man show and I don't really have a cameraman, so I'm just manually taking you into my space right now. So this right here is my bedroom, and I basically pulled out a fold-out table that I used to have my art stuff in my kids' room when I first started out kraftyfox, and now right now I've actually put it in my master bedroom space. So the space behind me that you see was the space that I had while I was having my youngest at home. I mean, she's still at home with me, but the thing is, I actually have moved into her room ever since, and this space right here is my cozy little nook and my little space that I have run all of my Zoom workshops. I have also been doing my daily 100-day project paintings all here, and if you've been following me on Instagram, this might have been the space that you're most familiar with. So here I've got my tray as per normal, my little tray. I've got my ring light so that I could do my paintings at night. And really, even though this was a really small little cozy space, I really liked it because it was close to the window and it gave me lots of great natural light. I also like that I didn't have to move my things around from the dining table, because before that I had to move it away so that I could accommodate my kids and make sure that, you know, we still have space on our dining table for us to continue eating. Now the thing is, my kids still come into my room every now and then, and they definitely do touch my things, but we've also created a lot more boundaries and respect around my space, so I don't actually see them touching my things as much, but they do exhibit a lot of curiosity with regard to my materials and what I'm doing. And the nice thing is that we actually do connect around this, because my kids actually share with me what they like about my paintings or which colors they like, and I think that this is such a nice way for us to connect as well. So when my mom-in-law said that she was coming to stay and visit us, we had to bunk all three girls into the same room, and this was when we cleared out my youngest daughter's room. So we actually had a spare room, and that's where this table was no longer used as an art space anymore. And I'm now going to bring you to the new space, which I have inhabited now all of my art things. And you know, over time I have started to add in all of my artwork, some of my paintings, and this shelf has been with us from the time I started kraftyfox. And then over here you would see that I've got my desk, and basically that space there is actually the Murphy bed that my mom-in-law and my guests actually use when they need to sleep. And then this table here was my husband's old desk, and we brought it up. And yeah, so basically I've moved my space, and I've also transformed quite a fair bit of things. It's crazy because now the gear that I'm using as well to do my filming, and you know, all the overhead lights and all that to help me, it's so different from the time that when I first started. And you know, being able to see all of these changes within the last year have also been very, very encouraging for me, because for me it was about creating that space and slowly growing as I went on. I had no idea that I was going to pursue watercolor full-time. I was just taking things as it came, and I was also seeing this as an opportunity for me to share whatever knowledge I knew about watercolor, because I loved it so much. I wanted people to also share that same passion and that same love with me. And so I basically didn't want to let space be a thing that kind of hindered me from wanting to start and do my art. I've always been drawn to watercolor, and while I've started to have kids when my kids were much younger, the thing that hindered me the most was, I gotta pull out my art supplies, they're in my kids' room, my kid napping right now. Or I would always have these things like, I'm so tired, I'm not inspired. There were so many roadblocks, and I realized that the roadblocks, all of them were really mental roadblocks that I was basically telling myself, the different messages related to why I couldn't pursue or do watercolor. At the same time, as I slowly made space, I also felt like I got to explore more. I got to change the way I do things. My perspective shifted as well, because a part of me, when I first started watercolor, before I had kids, I used to want to always make sure that I had at least 2 to 3 hours amount of time to paint, because I felt like, okay, I'm going to do a couple of paintings, I'm going to take my time. And of course, with kids, I don't have that luxury of 2 to 3 hours anymore. So I've started to learn to break down my paintings. I've started to kind of pull out pockets of time instead. So if, let's say, my kid naps for 20 minutes, then that's the 20-minute painting time that I had. And I was just grateful for that short time rather than feeling like it was not enough. So the mindset shift really helped me to move along with my practice. It also helped me to figure out a rhythm that was good for me, instead of feeling this sense of not enoughness, or this sense of that, I needed to have X amount of time or X amount of space before I could start or do something. So I hope that this video has been encouraging for you to see that you can use your space and your time depending on how you prioritize it. I now prioritize watercolor and art as a non-negotiable. Even though I'm doing this full-time, I'm also very mindful that I want to still be able to create for myself for fun and just doing paintings because I feel like it, rather than because it has to be a lesson or a workshop or a YouTube video. I want to still have that non-negotiable so that my passion still continues to flourish. And I feel like it really is such a journey for me to have taken a break and then come back from it. And it also shows me that you can always come back to whatever that you were doing before, even if that break was for some time. I feel like it shouldn't be a hindrance or a way that stops you from coming back into something, but rather for you to see it as a pause, and then it's okay to kind of dip your toes back in again and see how it feels, just like riding a bike. So thank you so much for staying tuned. I hope that you enjoyed my little tour of my little space. I have specifically framed out some of these paintings that I feel are the style that I really, really like. Some of it are also colors that I'm really drawn to, and I feel like it's so important for me to come into a space where I've got my own artwork just everywhere, just so that it inspires me to want to create. It shows me all of those possibilities that I could do while having to look after 3 kids. So yeah, I know it's so overwhelming, but yeah. So anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have got any comments, or if you'd like to share with me your experience about what it's been like for you with your watercolor journey, your art journey, or whatever that you are doing, that has taken a road, I would love to hear from you in the comments. Share with me how you make space for the things that matter to you, whether it's physical space like how I showed you, or even mental space like what I shared about having to change your mindset around things, because all of these insights really help me to also grow as an artist, and I really like connecting with you. If you really enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button. At the same time, subscribe to this channel, because I'm not only providing tutorials about how to paint, I also want to provide you a space to give you insight into the little world that I've created, and at the same time, I hope that you enjoy the space that I'm growing here for you. I'll see you in the next video.